Training, eh? The real question is, can you fight? You know, throw a good punch. Can you? I'd like to find out if I'm going to spend time working with you. So you up for a sparring match? Hey, yo! Hey, yo! Continue.
What's up, good people? Once again, it's the 8-Bit Academic here with another episode of retro video game awesomeness, mixed in with a bit of fun fact flavor. In today's episode, I will be showcasing the second installment in one of gaming history's biggest fighting game franchises, released all the way back in 1995 for arcades and 1996 for the Sony PlayStation 1 console. I'm of course talking about Tekken 2, one of the more successful 3D fighting games that came out in the mid-90s, and while its mechanics and graphics may be a tad bit out of date compared to the more recent entries in the series, it's still a favorite among many Tekken fans, especially the more old school ones like me who grew up playing it in both arcades and consoles. Not to mention, in my honest and ever so blunt opinion, it has the best soundtrack out of all the Tekken games. I don't care if anyone disagrees. The sequel to Namco's Tekken 1, released in 1994, its story follows the ever-so-toxic relationship of the Mishima family, in this case, Kazuya and his never-ending beef with his father Heihachi, which has been going on for the past 30 years.
Bye, bitch!
The game featured around 25 playable characters, 15 of which were unlockable in the game's arcade mode, as well as various other modes that would become staples to the series. These include survival mode, team battle mode, time attack mode, and practice mode. Tekken 2 was a critical as well as commercial success, with about 40,000 arcade units and 5.7 million PlayStation copies sold worldwide, and becoming one of the best-selling PlayStation games at the time, as well as laying down the general foundation and formula for future titles in the series, as well as having a massive influence on other 3D fighting games. In this footage, I'm playing as a character by the name of Bruce Irvin, which admittedly I'm not the best with since he's not one of my mains, but what the hell. According to the game's story, Bruce enters the second King of Iron Fist tournament to test his abilities while working as a mercenary for Kazuya. I would also wager that the inspiration for Bruce Irvin may have come from the real-life Canadian kickboxing champion Pete Cunningham. However, this is just a theory on my part since I could not find any information to prove this idea. Just that the similarity in their appearance is there, as well as the fact that Pete was also a world champion in the 90s. He also did kickboxing and Muay Thai, so...
The resemblance is uncanny.
Anyway, since this video features a martial arts based fighting game, and no less with a character that does some form of kickboxing, in this case Muay Thai, I figured that the best topic to cover alongside it is the 1989 Jean Claude Van Damme movie Kickboxer, which I'm sure most of us have seen playing on TV over and over and over again, along with Bloodsport. Especially if you live in South Africa, and ETV's weekly Friday action night feature, where they will play the same 80s and 90s action movies starring either Van Damme, Steven Seagal, Chuck Norris, Sylvester Stallone, Dolph Lundgren, and the same in Jackie Chan movies, namely the Rush Hour trilogy and nothing else, every single damned year.
Put the pedal to the metal. It's Friday Action Max.
So the reason I decided to talk about this movie is because there's one interesting little piece of information that I would think most people do not know about, especially South Africans. So this video is actually more aimed at people from my country rather than anywhere else in the world. And I believe this to be the case because most people I've spoken to about it who are fans of Jean Claude Van Damme and his films are in absolute shock whenever I bring this up to them. And that is the fact that the guy playing the villain, the Thai fighter named Tong Po, is actually African and not Asian at all.
Oh my god! Wow!
Yeah. Just take a moment to soak that information in. I know, right? My life was a lie too. It turns out Tong Po is actually played by a very close friend of Van Damme's named Mohammed Qissi, who just like Van Damme was also a martial artist specializing mainly in boxing but also having added karate and kickboxing to his arsenal of deadly words. Qissi was born in Morocco and moved to Brussels, Belgium at the age of 2 with his family. He started training in boxing at 7 years old and became an amateur champion in his weight class at 17 before deciding to study those 2 other deadly words I mentioned earlier. He and Van Damme befriended each other in their childhood, both having a massive love for action films and being inspired by the likes of Muhammad Ali and Bruce Lee. In 1982, both he and Van Damme would move to the United States with the shared hope of making it big in Hollywood as action stars. Their first role together were being cast as extras in a film called Breakin' in 1984. But the two would receive their breakthrough in the Van Damme classic Bloodsport in 1988, with Van Damme taking the lead role and Qissi taking a smaller role as a tournament fighter named Swan Paredes. I think I said that right. Qissi and Van Damme would then go on to star together in Kickboxer in 1989 and Lionheart in 1990, as well as Qissi having roles in other B-grade action and martial arts films like Kickboxer 2, where he would again play Tong Po, Blood Match, To the Death, and Extreme Force, to mention a few throughout the 90s and early 2000s. He and Van Damme would sadly end up having a falling out and going their separate ways, with Qissi eventually becoming more involved in Moroccan filmmaking and cinema. However, they would eventually reunite and once again co-star in 2016's Kickboxer Vengeance. The reason for his role in the first Kickboxer movie being cast as Tong Po was due to his fairly tall stature and intimidating appearance. It was then decided by the director and the production team to use stage makeup to make him look more Asian to help fit better into the role of Tong Po, who was meant to be a Muay Thai fighter from Thailand. Now, after successfully ruining everyone's childhood memories, I will proceed to do even more damage. The master Xian Chow that teaches Muay Thai to Van Damme in the film also wasn't Thai and also wasn't a martial artist either. His name was Dennis Chan, and he is in fact an actor from Hong Kong who had starred in some roles for TV shows and a long list of Chinese films in the 1970s and 1980s. Even after the role of Kickboxer, he would go on to star in 2 of its sequels, as well as continue acting in Hong Kong and mainland Chinese films, as well as being a producer and director to this day. The actress that played Mai Li also wasn't Thai, but was in fact a Filipino-American woman by the name of Rochelle Ashana, who has also starred in a couple of small roles in TV shows and films. Lastly, the guy playing Van Damme's brother, Eric Sloan, who gets his ass beat by Tong Po and ends up in a wheelchair, is the only true badass of the story. He was played by real-life boxing and kickboxing legend Dennis Alexio, who... Look, just go watch his fights on YouTube. The guy was a total beast in the ring. Anyway, that's enough of ruining everyone's childhood memories, but hey, regardless of the facts presented here today, Kickboxer is still a great movie and one of my personal favorites of Jean Claude Van Damme. Yes, by today's standards, it's very dated and cheesy. But hey, it was the 80s. A time of shirtless and sweaty muscular men kicking ass and a shit ton of cocaine. And besides, a little bit of cheese never hurt nobody, so if you haven't seen it yet or you're of the younger generation, go watch that shit. It's art. Well, that's it for another episode of the 8-Bit Academic. Once again, my offerings to our YouTube algorithm overlords, I say the holy incantations of you leaving a like, a few comments which I may or may not read, depends on how I feel, and subscribing and sharing with at least 10 other people to help this humble channel grow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.
I wanted it so fucking bad. I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.